and welcome to the Divinely Driven Results Show, where you learn and implement divine strategies for real results in your business. I'm Elise Smith, Christian business strategist, and we would love to be able to take you on our journey today that is all about dealing with grief as you're working your business, because heaven knows there are some things that are going to come up in your life that could stop you in your tracks from working your business, but God's given you that purpose to continue forward. And we have an incredible expert here today. Her name is Maria Belanic, and we are so excited to be able to have her tell us a little bit more about what she does, who she is, and give us some great tips on dealing with grief and still working our business. So Maria, tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Well, thank you, Elise. I'm so honored to be here on your show and to share my experience with your audience. And you're right, none of us expect trauma to happen in our life. And I think the last 18 months has definitely shown the world that in a split second, things can change suddenly that just stop us in our tracks. And at times we are feeling powerless in what we're supposed to do and where we're supposed to move forward. And that is where, as you say, I think for me personally, I've had some trauma that happened in 2009, and it's been a long journey to get to where I am now. But I've answered the call from God in the sense of this is where He's directed me to be, right? Through my own experience, I want to share that with other people. So that way they can actually learn some tools to hopefully navigate this journey that we have gone into unexpectedly.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And with grace and of course with glory.
Yeah. And the fascinating thing is, so my mother passed away pretty unexpectedly about a year ago. Actually, it was just a few days from this recording, 1 year ago. And I was really surprised at how I did not know how to grieve. I didn't even know what that really was until I was thrown into that. And of course, I had to give myself grace and, to be able to move forward. So give us some tips and tricks on how to do that. How do you grieve?
Well, Elise, first off, my condolences. Right? It's all of a sudden we really don't know how we're going to react when something happens, especially at such a deep loss. And one of the things is, as you said, is to give yourself the grace to grieve. Because one of the things that I've learned, there is no manual, there's no fast track, and there is no correct way of grieving, right? Because of course, our relationships are going to be different, our personalities, and grief or loss is actually like a fingerprint, right? It's going to be unique and individual. So one of the things that I found personally that helped is actually to have a worksheet in regards of what are your emotions? What are you feeling? Because I think a lot of times we bottle it up of what we're feeling. And we don't know how to explain it, because all of a sudden, what I found is that loss actually triggers a lot of losses that you might have experienced in your past. It brings up things from your childhood, things that you think that are buried, and all of a sudden that comes up. So it's always good to write it down. One of the other aspects too is, of course, having a journal. And a journal is just writing down again when you're waking up in the morning, what you're feeling, what you can be grateful for. That is something that I had started to do, is also a gratitude journal. Is that even just the simplest of things of saying, I got out of bed, I had breakfast, it's a beautiful sunny day. If we can start to look at things of what we're grateful for, and also sort of, I know at the time when something's happening, you may not be able to realize where your thoughts are. Are they negative or are they positive? But when you're writing it down, you can look at, oh, wow, that was a negative thought. How can I reframe it? Because we don't want to say, how do you change it? Because all of a sudden, when you think of change, it seems like there's so much work. I need to work. If you say reframe, all of a sudden it just like, oh, okay, it's just a different word. What other word can I think of to say exactly this? But it actually empowers you. And I think that's what happens in the grief, is that we feel so powerless. And with the negative thoughts, it just keeps us more down in regards of disempowering us rather than empowering us to move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. There's such a loss of control that I found that, I'm kind of a control freak, and that, there was nothing that I could do for my family, for myself, in the situation in general. And it was a really hard time. I mean, I'm the one who's always telling people, like, there's going to be hard times and you've got to work through it. And I realized in that moment, like, I really do have to give myself grace and to feel those feelings. And I love your concept of journaling, because I know that helped me a lot as well. What else would you give advice for of being able to work your business even through the grief?
Yes, and depending on the relationship and what type of grief, uh, I think, because of course, as I mentioned beforehand, it can stop you in your tracks. And sometimes you do things because it's routine and it's out of habit. Um, some of the things is just basically to connect again to nature, just to feel grounded and for your faith. One of the things, of course, is the prayer, the footprints. And that is so true, because I think when you've suffered loss, we really start realizing how much the Lord carries us.
Mhm.
And I know, I think I prayed lots of time going, okay, I'm giving it to you, putting it at your feet. Help me. So it really is. And also doing things for your own self care, because one of the aspects during grief that you forget is to look after yourself, looking
Mhm.
after your health, because that does suffer in the sense of your, you know, I always go, as women that are working, we're constantly busy anyways. You add loss and grief to the mixture, then all of a sudden you start even more so to forget about looking after yourself. So looking after, you know, are you eating the proper meals? Sometimes even just taking breathing exercise, right? Of really concentrating of how your breath is. A little tip that someone else had taught me is, if you put your fingers together, like your thumb and your little finger here, and you press it, all of a sudden it just does something to your neurological, that it makes you think of something else. So it stops that brain, kind of sort of your thoughts, right? Um, and there is different little tips that you can use. I know I go through that in my newsletter in my course, where I sort of start off of what grief we're at and to go through there. And again, it's really going to depend on the person and when you're ready. Because one of the things also is that for someone to tell you tips when you're not ready to move forward,
Yeah.
just actually makes you feel more stuck.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting because I wanted to just go back to my normal business life, and my life in general. And I wanted to just put it behind and have those moments where I cry in my bed and then just get up and go, right?
Mhm.
And it was almost like the more that I tried to work my business in those moments when I wasn't ready, it felt like I was in quicksand, or just like I just couldn't move. Everything just felt so much more difficult. And I realized that was me basically telling myself, like, you're not ready to go back to that yet. And I just wanted to hide from the world. And so I found just little things to be able to get me back into my business. Maybe I wasn't ready to do coaching calls. Maybe I wasn't ready to do sales calls. And thank goodness I have an incredible team to be able to help cover for all of that. But I took actually this selfie challenge because I wanted to get myself out into the world a little bit more and push myself, because I felt like I was ready. And that actually helped a ton, just because I am the face of my brand, and it helped a little bit. And that was the one thing that I felt like I could do. Everything else I had to put on the back burner. Do you have experience with that, of just easing into, your regular life essentially after that trauma?
Oh, definitely. I mean, for myself personally, after my son passed away in 2009, I was in real estate at the time. So because it was routine, and that's what you find, either you want to hide away or you start doing like the busy work.
Mhm.
And so you just want to keep occupied. And sometimes you just do the same things that you were doing and you focus on that. But then afterwards, you come home and you're just depleted of emotions, depleted of everything. And that can actually suppress also, right? It's not that you haven't an understanding of grief, it's more or less you just feel that you need to do something.
Mhm.
And as you say also, is that the more sometimes that we push ourselves out there when we're not ready, the more it seems that we're suppressing ourselves and keeping our emotions down. And again, it's, I think one of the other things too, which of course this past 18 months has taught all of us, is that you really start looking at your values and what are your core values? What is it that's a priority for you and your family? Um, and then that basically then sometimes starts transforming your business because sometimes we're in a business because we're in it. We may enjoy it, but we're doing it because of the money. And all of a sudden you realize with loss is that then it's like, okay, am I doing this because of the money or is it something that I really love? Is this where I'm called to do? And what I found afterwards is that a lot of people then turn to a career or a job of service, right? Because all of a sudden it's like if you've gone through something, you want to help someone else
Mhm.
and you're finding ways of how to help someone else. So again, it really depends on the individual person because I don't want to say it's a blanket of
Mhm.
yes, stay in, but it really does. I think you end up finding what's aligning with your spirit, right? And you're also finding ways to honor yourself and whatever your loss is. Because the research that I've done, there's over 40 different types of losses. And we don't even recognize it, right? There's so much. There's loss of a job, there's divorce, separation, um, loss of a pet, right? It's moving, right? Even just selling a home and moving your home, there's a loss. So you get a lot of anxiety sometimes in regards to loss, and that can intensify depending on the relationship that you had with a person or where you are and where you're at.
Yeah, absolutely. And it isn't a one size fits all situation. And I think that's why it's so important for us to turn to the Prince of Peace, right? To turn to our Savior, because our Savior is the one who can give us the peace that we're looking for out of anything else in the world. I just remember when I got that call about my mom. I was immediately hit, of course, with grief and chaos and, just questions and all that. But I also remember this incredible sense of peace to know that my mom was taken care of on the other side. She had struggled with a lot of health issues. And so, just like you were talking about with the reframing, is for me to be able to look at that and say, okay, she is in a better situation than she was here. Even though, of course, I'm going to miss her on this side, but just knowing that she's in a better situation. And so, just helping us to get through that is turning to Christ and to know that we can do that anytime that we need to. So if anyone is struggling with any of these losses, like it doesn't have to be a death. I love the fact, Maria, that you just brought that up, is that there's so many losses, there's so many traumas, so many things that can stop us in our tracks. And we do need to honor that. But we do need to still move forward when we're ready and to take that to the Lord and say, okay, when am I ready and how am I ready? And what's that next step for me? That's going to be huge.
It
Good.
totally is, Elise, and I totally agree with that in the sense of, as you said, there isn't a one size fits all.
Yeah.
Right? Otherwise, we'd all be looking the same.
Exactly.
And it is. And I don't even want to say that it's a process, it's a journey,
Mm.
right? And as they say, how do you get from point A to B? Sometimes it's a zigzag,
Yeah.
right? It's not a straight line. And as you say, the Lord actually has a path for us. For all of us, we may not know what it is, but there is definitely a path for us. And I totally believe that it really is. I mean, the Lord carries us to help us as long as we ask, right? Sometimes even if you don't ask, the Lord is still there carrying us.
No, thank you.
But it really is. It's something that, and I think support also comes from community, or sometimes even a networking of people that may not have been people that you have known. But I always go, Lord, God always sends us people to be in our lives that are going to help us. And no matter where it comes from, I always say, take it, right? Because yes, people have entered into my life, and it could be, as they say, for a reason or a season, but God is going to give you like those steps of someone else to be there to either guide you, to help you along, to even give you an encouraging word.
Yeah, beautiful. And it may be that you take 2 steps forward in your business and then you take 4 steps back. You know what I mean? It's very much love the fact that it's a journey and not a process, that you're going to just go ahead and feel out with the Lord what you're doing in that moment and what you can expect of yourself. And sometimes even it's just expecting yourself to get up in the morning and keep going. So any of my amazing sisters in this community or anyone who's listening, our heart goes out to you for any kind of loss or trauma that you've experienced, and know that you can turn to the Lord, and that these amazing tips that Maria has given us here today, I want you to keep that in mind. Have grace with yourself and journal out those feelings so that you don't just suppress those things, and to be able to take that to the Lord and ask for his peace, and then also to know when you're ready to take that next step in your business. But the one thing I would say is just be careful with how long you stay down, right? I think for me that if you, I'm trying to think of how to say this here, is that if you are down to that point where it's just depression and, that you can't get up and you see no hope or anything like that, we want you to get help, whether it's a coach or whether it's counseling or whatever that may be. But you're also going to have those days where you are going to feel like you can do something. And those are the days, take action, right? And that will help to kind of get you feeling a little bit better. But it's not a one size fits all journey. And I love how you said that. So Maria, any other thoughts you want to share with us before we end today?
Basically, just to agree with you, and you're right. My heart goes out to anyone that has suffered any traumas or any type of loss, because it really is. I mean, it's devastating, and it just, I think, really plays on our own self-worth. And one of the things that I always like to lead people for is that you are worthy. Nothing that has ever happened is your fault. Stuff in life just happens. We have no control of it. And I think that's, as you mentioned in the beginning, right? Like, I'm also a control freak. And you think we control everything, but to let it go and to say, you know what, things are beyond my control, and to accept that, and to understand that you are worthy. Because I think that is something I always feel that people really need to know, and that you are loved by God. One of the things as a free gift is definitely, I mean, if people don't need to go out to buy a journal, because I know that sometimes can be challenging when you've had suffered loss and it's like, oh no, which one do I pick? So I do have a sheet that someone can copy to start off that process, and also an emotional trigger sheet to help out in that journey of where you can get that. And anyone can reach out to me on my private Facebook group, which is Grieving Moms Breaking Taboo. Right.
Grieving Moms Breaking Taboo. So be sure to join her Facebook group, reach out to her on the social media channels. We will also include links so that you can have access to that and connect with her as well. And then lastly, I would say that if you need a Christian women entrepreneur community to be able to support you in every process, every step of your journey, whether that's with grief or just in your business in general, we'd love to have you come join our Facebook group as well, called Faithful Ladypreneurs. Awesome, Maria. Thank you so much for sharing your heart and all of your experience with what you've been through and also what you've helped other people through. This is never a fun topic, I'm sure, to discuss, but I think that we can really feel the spirit when we know where we can turn to and how we can start taking that action to start feeling better and getting back to, I don't want to say our old selves, it's actually our new selves that we get back to, which is really a unique process in this whole journey. So thank you very much, Maria. It's been a pleasure having you on the show today.
Well, thank you so much, Elise, for this has been a pure joy.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. And yes, and I hope that your audience has gotten some nuggets from this topic, because it is about breaking taboos.
Yes, exactly. I'm sure they're writing furiously. And we will see you guys next time on Divinely Driven Results.